This unit is going to take one sediment filter, one carbon filter, and two GXM-200 membranes. They're right here. Two 200-gallon-a-day membranes hooked in parallel gives us 400 gallons a day of pure, gorgeous water. And now the first thing we want to do when changing filters is depressurize the RO unit. Now this one's already disconnected, so but to depressurize it, we turn off the incoming water supply. When you do that, you're going to watch the pressure gauge go down to 0. Then you know you're almost all the way depressurized. You're going to open the flush valve, and that is going to depressurize the extra 1 or 2 psi that stands in the membrane. If you have a float valve connected to the unit, like so, let's say you have a float valve connected to the RO side, what you want to do is push, if the tank is full, you want to push down on the float valve. If the tank is full, it's pushing the float valve up, and if you push down on it, you'll see a little psst of water come out, and that depressurizes the RO side. So on those 3 lines, we've depressurized the unit fully. Now we're ready to take off the canisters and change the filters. Now that the unit's depressurized, removing the canisters is very easy. Just use the filter wrench, give a little tug counterclockwise, and they come right off. I'm going to set the head of the unit down, and we're going to service the filter canisters. You simply pull the old filters out. These happen to be new, but let's pretend they're old. You dump the water out of the canisters. Feel free to clean them. They're probably not going to be the shiny white as they were when they came out of the factory here. But you can use a little bit of soap, dish soap and water, a scrub brush if you want. Just make sure you get all the soap out. Clean the canisters out well. On the 400s have a unique housing, and there's an O-ring on the very top, and there's also one here. It's a dual O-ring housing, and make sure they don't fall out. You're going to need them both. When the canisters are clean, you can put a new filter in. These units come with a spun poly sediment filter. If you have low water pressure and you could upgrade, or I would just call it cross grade, to a pleated filter. These are a lot thinner. It's like a paper towel rolled up, where this is really thick, and you get more pressure drop through the spun filter. If you have low water pressure, well, you could always use one of our BP 1530 booster pumps. That'll pick up the pressure to 80 psi. But if that's not an option, you can use a pleated filter. They have less pressure drop. Now what we're going to do is put a little bit of the food grade silicone grease, which we strongly encourage you to use when you change filters, and just put a little bit on the O-rings, like that. Just keep a little on your hand and just rub it on the O-rings. What this does, we put it on here at the factory when we make them, and when you change the filter, that makes it easier for you to get this housing off because we grease these. But if you don't change the filters in a timely manner, a lot of scale can build up, and they could feel kind of welded together. It can be tough to get these off. So make sure you re-grease these O-rings when you change the filters every time, and you'll have no problem getting them off. Now that they're greased, we're just going to put them back in place and spin them on like that. Get them to where they stop. These are really made to be hand tightened, but if you're not strong enough or you're injured or something, you have this little filter wrench. Just don't over torque it. Just give it a little 1/4 inch turn. You'll feel them seat, and that's good enough. If you over torque them, you'll have a really tough time getting them off in the future. Okay, now we're going to change the membranes. This unit has 2 GXM-200 membranes. We're going to change them both. To do that, we take the tube that comes from the carbon output and feeds the membrane input. It splits into 2 right here and feeds both membranes. We're going to disconnect both of them. Okay? And we're simply going to twist off this cap counterclockwise, like so. And then we can move it aside a little and twist off the bottom one as well. Now if these are hard to get off, here's a neat little trick. We use an oil filter wrench. These are Union wrenches also. You can get them in plumbing stores. You can get these in auto stores. Harbor Freight has them for really cheap. These are great if you have if these get welded on because you didn't change them in time. You can just put these around it, hold one end, and twist them off. Neat little tool to have. These ones come off quite easy though. They're brand new. These are the newer design housings that we have. They have 2 O-rings on them. There is not an O-ring in the cap on the newer housings, so you don't have to worry about losing it. To get the membrane out, all we do is grab the nipple, the core tube in the middle, and just give a little twist and a pull, and that membrane comes right out. 1, and 2. Real simple. Now we're going to put, these are brand new membranes, so we're going to put them back in. But again, we take the food grade silicone grease. This time we want to put a little lube on the O-rings that are on the end of the core tube, and we want to put some on this brine seal. Like all of our membranes, on the label you'll see the direction of flow. There's an arrow. It also says flow direction, and that's the direction you slide it in the housing. And you'll always know the brine seal is the last part of the membrane to go in, so simply follow the arrows, push the brine seal in. You're going to feel those O-rings seat in the bottom of the tube. You repeat the same thing for the other membrane, like so. I should have mentioned, if these housings are dirty, feel free to take a little soap and water and brush them out with a brush. Clean them out and just make sure all the soap is out. Now we're going to take a little more silicone grease and hit the O-rings so that these caps are easy to get off next time. And just thread the caps back on. Hand tight only. Like so. And then reconnect the feed line from the carbon. Now if this was a KDF carbon, I wouldn't reconnect it yet. I would flush the carbon. And I'm going to bring that point up next as I turn this filter around. So all the filters on this unit have been changed. Again, if this was a KDF carbon, flush this carbon out before you pump it into this membrane and ruin them, these brand new membranes. And you can see that in an earlier video on the installation and setup of this EX-400. So flush the carbon, and then again, you'll see in the earlier videos, purge the membrane. Flush the membrane too for about a half an hour to get all the storage solution out. And then those 2 simple steps, and you're ready to rock. Back in service.